And do live.
Good evening and welcome to our September 17th, 2025 regular board meeting. And there is no one present in the audience, so we will adjourn to our closed session and return for open session at 5:30 p.m.
Thanks, Dan.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular board meeting of the Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. Today is Wednesday, September 17th. How about Ms. King to help us start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for doing that.
I'll move to approve the agenda for today.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we're going to move right into public comment. I have a few yellow forms with names. I'll call you up. And then after these, if there's anyone else that would like to make a comment, just make sure you check in with Lupita to be on record. Okay, the first one is Gina Grutzmacher.
Miss G.
What did you say?
Mrs. G.
Mrs. G.
We just call her Miss G.
Great, thank you.
And of course their academics. We say a lot we want to retain our teachers to stay in Tahoe, but I have a little bit of a different outlook. I feel that our teachers are pretty ingrained here, and we stay here because we have a tight community and a lot of us have help. But what worries me more is the mental and physical health of the teachers and also their family members. So I'm pretty concerned that the extreme financial burden that the healthcare and the raise might inflict on some of the teachers or most of the teachers or all of them will put people into a really terrible mental state. I know that we've sent in things that shown the bills rising. For example, in the past 5 months, my personal water, sewer bill, electrical bill, and the most obvious being our gas and groceries. The certified and classified staff, I like to call our frontline, our essential workers, or our ditch diggers, and I can say that because I'm married to one and he came with me tonight. Teachers who have high education, high training, master's education, going to conferences, all those things, are still having to wait tables and have second jobs on the weekends and the weeknights. And believe me, waiting tables is not beneath me. I did it for 18 years. But it seems very off. It doesn't seem right to see your coworkers waiting on you when you go out to dinner. I'm not hoping for a fair contract. I'm asking for one because this is our mental health, our physical health, our family's health, and our friends' health. Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for being here. Wait, who pushes the button? I thought she. Okay. All righty. Hi everybody. I'm Dr. Stephanie Bacon. I teach 6th grade at North Tahoe School. And I'm just curious, have you heard of the teacher subsidy? If you haven't, it's not that well known yet. The teacher subsidy is the uncompensated hours teachers put in to manage their ever-increasing workloads. Districts across the U.S. have saved billions of dollars on the backs of these unpaid hours. These are the early mornings spent in IEP meetings, the lunch breaks we skip, the evenings and weekends grading papers and catching up on emails and searching for materials because there is no adopted curriculum that meets the diverse needs of our students. For me, it looks like prepping for 5 classes and differentiating for 12 IEPs in just 48 minutes a day. It's writing feedback on 50 papers when meaningful feedback takes far longer than the time allotted. It's designing lessons for kids who read anywhere from 1st grade to 12th grade level, all in one classroom. The hidden subsidy comes with a dangerous cost. There are never enough hours, so teachers sacrifice. Some lose their health, some lose their emotional well-being, and some lose their time with family. Some, despite their best efforts, see their teaching suffer. I know this cost personally. I'm at the top of the pay scale for Tahoe Truckee, and I was living paycheck to paycheck because I'm a single income parent. I first moved into my truck, and then I moved to Reno, and now I spend 2 hours a day commuting. I have no more time to give. The subsidy ends here for me. So I ask you, what should I sacrifice next? My health? My family? My students? At convocation, we heard from Keith Matheny that when people are dysregulated, their IQ literally drops. Not being able to pay your bills is dysregulating. Being forced to leave your community is dysregulating. Being asked to do more with less support is deeply dysregulating. And the impact of a dysregulated teacher on a classroom is staggering. We have carried the weight of this hidden subsidy for decades. Imagine what our students could achieve if we weren't exhausted, stretched thin, and forced to sacrifice our own health. It's time to honor our teachers not only with fair pay, but with less on their plates. Our emotional well-being has an incredible impact on student academic and social and emotional learning. And if you don't believe me, man, let's set up a meeting and I'll show you the research. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bacon. Okay, next up is Kelly Norris.
Okay, some tough acts to follow. Man.
Okay, hello board members and fellow teachers. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So we appreciate that part of the job of the board members and the school district is to make financial decisions to keep the district running in the future. However, let's step back and remember why we are here as a district is to educate the students. And the biggest factor on educating students is quality teachers. In order to attract quality teachers and retain quality teachers like Stephanie Bacon, I would hate to see you go teach in Reno School District. That would be a tragedy. We need to have adequate compensation. So what are qualities of highly qualified teachers? Well, skilled in academic instruction, motivational speaker, conflict resolution, crowd control, life coaching, decoding emotional signals, fluent in Google Classroom, tech troubleshooting, having the patience of a monk sometimes, smiling and using kind voices, even when maybe inside we're stressed or emotionally taxed, having to hold our bodily functions for hours. And so contractually, we work from about 7:30 to 3 p.m. depending on our school sites, but in reality we know we work way beyond those hours, grading papers, planning, writing, responding to emails, and thinking nonstop about how we can make our lesson from yesterday better next time we do it. And so surely keeping quality teachers should be the highest priority of the school board. And so I'm here asking you to do the right thing and come to the negotiation table with an offer that compensates teachers for our hard work and our magical range of skills. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Nurse. Next is Teresa Polito.
It's always bad going after creative teachers. So I'm a math and science teacher, so I'm just going to say it like it is, sorry. So, again, Superintendent Kramer and trustees, Teresa Polito, 8th grade math and science at Alder Creek. I've been in the district since 1997. So I am here to once again address the increase in healthcare costs as well as the disappointment I have that for the offer that TTUSD has given TTA during the most recent negotiation session. My portion of the healthcare coverage will increase to over $2,800 a month. This is about 25% of my salary, which translates to a 5.86% salary loss due to healthcare. To have TTUSD offer a salary increase that is less than the 2025 COLA and less than the estimated 2026 COLA is not fair or reasonable. Feels like a slap in the face to someone like me who has worked in the district for almost 30 years. Let me give you an idea of how cost of living has affected me. I have 4 children, 2 who have graduated from college and twins who are in their 3rd year of college. When my first 2 were both in college during the 2019-2020 school year, my expected financial contribution based on whatever you have to send into the schools was about $25,000 per student or $50,000 per year. My net pay at the time was $4,900 a month. So rough math, the expected contribution for college was about 50% of my gross pay. For my twins who are in college now, my expected financial contribution currently is $60,000 per child or $120,000 a year. My expected net pay with the additional cost of insurance will be about $5,400 a month, about $500 more than I got 5 years ago. Yet my college expenses has more than doubled. The expected contribution for college is now 87% of my income. Simply put, my take-home pay has increased about $500 a month since 2019, yet my yearly college expected contribution has increased by $70,000. I am the health insurance provider for my family. 5 family members are covered under my policy, which, like I stated, is 25% of my gross income, not net. My monthly net pay is less than 50% of my salary. I have spent most of my adult life supporting the value of education by teaching. As a parent, I feel responsible for supporting my own children financially through college. As the cost of college has increased substantially in the last 10 years, I'm finding it harder to keep up with this commitment. A fair wage to cover health care this year is only a Band-Aid. Cost for health care is projected to increase every year going forward. We need a sustainable plan. TTUSD, you can do better. Teachers deserve a district that values our health and well-being and values the work that we do every single day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ippolito. The next one is Linda Lessner. And this is the last yellow slip I have, so if anyone else wishes to speak. Fill one out? Grab one from, oh, okay, you can come up after Ms. Lessner.
They say their names.
Yes, thank you.
I want to start off with thanking you for the opportunity to speak. Do you want to hit the timer?
No, just speak into the mic.
Okay, I'll move it up a little bit for me. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. I really enjoy working for this district. I'm originally from Texas, from Austin, Texas, and I taught there for my career. Where I retired from, and then I came back, and then Anna Marie talked me into coming back and teaching a little bit longer, so I have. And I can tell you some of the most talented individuals I've ever worked with are in this district. It's amazing. So I come from a state where there weren't salary increases tied with education. So when I saw that was part of our pay scale, I was like, wow. So I jumped in this summer because I have 2 kids that are in college this year. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to work hard. I earned 15 hours of graduate credit above my master's degree so I could increase my pay scale. Only to get the email later on in the summer saying that all of that hard work was gone, plus another $1,000, $1,300. So it was really disheartening to me to work that hard and know that it didn't really go to increasing my salary and helping me with 2 kids in college. So I just want to ask, what message does this send to teachers that are working hard to improve their practice for their students? I have already taken things that I learned this summer back into my classroom. So it was super impactful for my kids. So I just want the board to consider what this impact of the increase in healthcare does to teachers and does to their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lessner. Last chance before we move on with the agenda. Okay, thank you for all the public comments and the signs and the shirts. You are being heard, you are being seen. Thank you. Okay, superintendent's report.
And you're certainly welcome to say, but we also understand that some of you may need to get going home to families. So we understand if you get up and move. Yeah.
Maybe give her just a
Yeah.
sec.
And I'll wait just a moment so that people have a chance to shift. Well, thank you. I'm going to start with a celebration. So, all of you know, and we know, how amazing our food services team is. And what I'm very excited about is now all of the United States and perhaps the world know too, because our very own food services director, Kat, was interviewed for Time magazine. And I want to read a quote from the magazine that really captures TTUSD. Students in the Tahoe, Truckee Unified School District in California dine on locally sourced fruits and vegetables, homemade pozole, and fresh tuna poke bowls. Food in the school district is free of high fructose corn syrup, artificial dyes, and additives. Most of it's cooked by scratch by our amazing chefs and full-time kitchen staff, and everyone eats for free. So here's how the author sums it up. The district's meals, in other words, are about as good as it gets in the United States of America. So. Me and all of the chefs and the tireless work in making this happen, in collaborating with the farmers and bringing the most local food to our families. And also recognizing that Kat's team has received 2 awards. They have the Small and Rural Lunch Trailblazer Award this year and Innovation in the Preparation of School Meals. And these were recognized by USDA. So yes, another round of applause. So this is very well And so for our strategic plan update and academic achievement, we already have professional development underway. So even though we're only a couple weeks into the school year, we have our dedicated math teachers working hard. This is the second year of implementation with our new math curriculum. So the high school math department has already worked with a coach from Carnegie, and they've had a chance to meet together, continuing to look at curriculum and Mathia. Our 5th grade math teachers have had a chance to come together to look at the Eureka curriculum and continue implementation plans. And the middle school team next week will get to do some classroom walkthroughs with the Carnegie coach and then have time to debrief on what they saw and continue to collaborate and plan together. So again, I want to thank our math teachers and ed services for continuing to be learners and learn about the curriculum. And it just shows the commitment that we have to providing high-quality math education with our amazing teachers across all the grade levels. And we just want to make sure our teachers are equipped and understand how to use the tools so that really works for our students. So thank you for that. And then in support services, one of the key priorities is strengthening student voice. And we're very fortunate to have an active youth team called the Tahoe Youth Action Team. And they come and speak at board meetings a couple times a year and offer public comment. They're great advocates, and one of their big goals is for us to reduce our carbon emissions. So I just wanted to give an update of where we're at. Our Director of Facilities and Maintenance and Operations, Anna Klofstead, and our Energy Conservation and Sustainability Manager, Erica Mertens, reaches out to the team and tries to set up meetings. Now, you can imagine these youth are very active and busy, so they've had trouble. They've had to reschedule a couple of times, but they have a meeting on the books. And one of the things that the Youth Action has wanted to talk about is our greenhouse gas emissions. And we have just about have ready our first draft of our own inventory that we're done. So Anna and Erica are both very excited to meet with the students later this month and share that data with them. And then one of the requests or kind of calls to action for us in the resolution that they've been talking about with us is having an energy monitoring dashboard. And Erica shared with me today that we're very close to having that tool ready to put in place. And it will have a public facing, and then it'll be a great tool for us. So we're very excited for all of Erica's work bringing that to pass. And then also, they're considering forming a building energy advisory group that would include students. So that's in the very early stages, but we'll definitely be inviting these strong advocates, our youth, to participate. So I just want the board to know that the team is working with the Tahoe Youth Action Team. We did last year. We continue to do so this year, and we're slowly chipping away at some of those resolution items. So thanks to the facilities team for connecting with our youth in that way. And then in community connections, as you know, one of our big priorities is expanding and deepening the district-wide implementation of our community engagement initiatives. And then one of the ways our schools have been doing that is reimagining our back-to-school nights. And so the board and I have gotten to go to many of the different events. And at King's Speech this year, Principal DeWald and Assistant Principal DePrinzio and the staff there tried something new with the families. They had this families gather in mixed groups, and they talked about their hopes and dreams, and they met each other. And you can see staff members went around and kind of listened in on the conversations to hear what the families were hoping for and dreaming about for their students. So it was really neat to see our schools still trying new things. And then North Tahoe High School has been one of our pilot schools, and so they were in year 2 of a reimagined back-to-school night. And based on the feedback they had gotten the year before, they chose to do more of a hybrid model. And this is her parent data so far from this year's back-to-school night. It's very favorable. So the parents are definitely liking the new format, having more of a chance for that two-way conversation. So I just really want to celebrate our schools for trying new things with the families and encouraging those collaborative conversations. It's very exciting. And that concludes my
Okay, perfect, thank you. And next up.
Good evening, Superintendent Kramer, Clerk Hennessy, members of the Board of Trustees and community. Tonight I'm presenting Resolution Number 3, 2025-2026, honoring the National Hispanic Heritage Month, Mes de la Herencia Hispana. This resolution recognizes Hispanic Heritage Week, which began in 1968 under President Lyndon Johnson. It was expanded and enacted into law in 1988 to cover 30 days starting on September 15th, the day which represents the anniversary of independence for 5 Latin American countries. Hispanic Americans have made significant contributions to the cultural fabric of this country while achieving substantial recognition in American literature, science, music, and political leadership, and have helped to shape our Tahoe Truckee community with profound and positive influences through a solid commitment to family, faith, and community, and an enduring work ethic and many contributions to society as well as in our classrooms. This resolution proclaims that our schools will stand with the nation in recognizing September 15th to October 15th, National Hispanic Heritage Month, with activities appropriate to the occasion and to value the roles and contribution of Hispanics to the local and national economies, culture, and identity. It is staff's recommendation that the Board of Trustees adopt Resolution 3, 2025-2026 to honor September 15th through October 15th, National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you for that. Can we get a motion? Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I will move to approve the resolution of honoring National Hispanic Heritage Month.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
And for the next item, we'll turn to our Assistant Superintendent Chief Business Officer, Mr. Todd Rivera.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer, members of the board. So tonight we bring resolution number 4, 2025-2026, adopting the GAN limit. In 1979, the state of California passed Proposition 4, which was intended to limit the growth in government spending to be no faster than the growth in population and inflation. And this became known as the GAN limit, or the GAN appropriations limit. And this is something that applies to all agencies in California, all public agencies, the state, cities, counties, and school districts, and other public agencies as well. And what this is essentially is they look at our prior year spending, and then they apply those population and inflationary factors to give us a new spending limit or appropriations limit every year. And then at the end of the year, when we close the books, we compare that spending limit to what we actually spent. And if you met your GAN limit, then you don't need to do anything. If you've overspent, which in this case this year we have by $788,000, then we have to pass this resolution with a statement that we need to increase our GAN limit. So that's what this resolution includes. It includes our calculations for 2024-25 with the statement that we need to increase our GAN limit, requesting that from the state. And then also includes calculations for our 2025-26 year. And what it would be left to do after this, after the board approves this resolution, is we send a letter to the state controller's office asking them to increase our GAN limit for 2024-25, which will apply to the following year as well.
Any questions from, I guess, the public first? Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution Number 4, 2025-26, adopting the GAN limit.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. And next is donations.
For this item, we'll turn to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Shawn Roderick.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Kramer, Clerk Hennessy, members of the Board of Trustees, and community. Tonight, I'm pleased to present for your consideration a generous donation from the Alder Creek Middle School Parent-Teacher Organization. The ACMS PTO has graciously offered a donation of $2,499.20. These funds will cover half the cost of the Accelerated Reader Program. This donation directly supports our shared commitment to fostering literacy and a lifelong joy of reading. Through the Accelerated Reader Program, ACMS students are empowered to track their progress, set goals, and celebrate their achievement as readers. It is the staff's recommendation that the Board of Trustees accepts this generous donation.
Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, we appreciate the PTO investing in their school. Could we get a motion to accept this donation?
I'll move to accept the donation from the ACMS PTO for the ACMS School Renaissance Program.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. And next on to business services.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. So tonight we ask that the board considers and approves Agreement 25-2302M with MCOR Mesa Energy Systems for replacement of HVAC controls at the Boys and Girls Club at Kings Beach. Over the years, particularly when we were doing our bond and facility improvements with measures E and U, one of the improvements that we made was to replace the control systems of the HVAC systems at all of our school sites. But there was a few sites that we did not complete that, one being the Boys and Girls Club. The other sites were Alder Creek Middle School and also the Transportation Department. And what these controls do is we can create scheduling to make sure that we're running our HVAC system efficiently, and this is just another step in improving our energy usage and efficiencies at the Boys and Girls Club. So this contract is for $113,999, which will be coming from maintenance funds.
Okay, any comments from the audience? So before I open it up to the board, I just want to remind everyone that we get these agendas before the board meeting, so we all get to read details, ask questions before, I think Monday is when they're due. President Driller and/or myself, when we go over the agenda with Superintendent Kramer, we get to ask questions. So even though it seems like we're just approving things right along, we've had an opportunity to ask deeper questions if needed. Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve this agreement?
I'll move to approve the agreement with MCOR Mesa Energy Systems.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rivera?
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry about that. So tonight I'm pleased to present the 2024-2025 unaudited actuals report, which essentially is the closing of the 24-25 school year. This is always one of my favorite reports to give, as I've mentioned before, because we've closed the books on 1 year, and kind of with unaudited actuals, there's no more estimating or projecting. It is what it is. What I'd also like to thank Patricia Kowalski, our Director of Fiscal Services, and also Angie Morales-White for doing all of the hard work associated with closing out the books for the year. It takes a lot of time and commitment. You're doing this all summer long, along with your other job duties as well. So thank you to them. Just to give you an overview of our budget reporting process, we're always kind of have our leg in and out of 3 fiscal years, really. Unaudited actuals are the final closeout. Well, not really the final, but the almost final closeout for the 24-25 year, and we have to submit those to the County Office of Education by September 15th. Next week, we'll start our external audit process. We've already done some work back in May, but this is kind of the final version of that. Reviewing our unaudited actuals, asking for backup, making sure that we're in compliance with all of the state and federal rules and regulations. And then we will have a final audit report completed that we'll be presenting to the board in December or January. And meantime, we're in the 25-26 school year, so we'll also in between there have our first interim report, which is essentially changes that have occurred to our budget since the time we adopted it in June through October 31st. So we'll be presenting that at our December meeting. And then after we approve the final audit, then we move into the second part of the year with our second interim report, which we'll be presenting in March, and that covers additional budgetary changes that occurred from the first interim timeline through January 31st. And then we're going to start working in April probably on our 26-27 budget. So we're always moving, we're always kind of finishing up in 1 year and starting a new one. So looking at how we closed out the year, Our overall revenues, and I'll go into a little more detail on these items, but just as a summary overview, they came in at $101.9 million. Our overall expenditures came in at $101.2 million. And then our total unrestricted fund balance, which is where our reserve is located, is $18.3 million. What shows in the books right now is a reserve for economic uncertainty of approximately $16.1 million. One thing I do want to mention, and I'll go into a little more explanation of this later, is that $426,000 in our revenues is actually what's called a fair market value investment entry. And what that is every year under GASB 31, public agencies are required to recognize the value of their investments. So all of our cash is invested by Placer County Treasurer. And depending on how those investments are doing, we have to recognize that on our books. So in years where investments are not doing so good, and what it's comparing is it's comparing that book value to what the market value is. So in years where the book value is less than what the market value is, then that's kind of showing that our investments aren't keeping up with what the value of the cash amount is. So in those years, which we've had in the past, probably the past 3 years, we actually do a negative entry. And we will show that in our books as being a negative revenue. And then the next year, generally what happens is we kind of cancel that out. It's not like we don't have the funds available to spend. It's just recognizing that investment amount. And years when it's good, and this year as an example, we have a positive entry. So we're recognizing an increase in revenue even though it's not really revenue we earned this year. And I know that's confusing, but it's confusing when you look at the books too. But essentially this is kind of almost like a dummy entry for us. It doesn't mean that we had $426,000 in additional revenue. It's just recognizing that our investments did better than what the book value is. So if we kind of take into account the fair market adjustments, our reserve really is about $15.9 million, a little bit less than the $16.1. So this is an increase of approximately $341,000 from what we estimated in June with our estimated actuals. And moving forward to some of the detail here. So what I'm comparing to is our estimated actuals. So when we adopted our 25-26 budget, we also had kind of our last budget revision for the 24-25 year, and that was us estimating how we thought we would close out the year. And that is called our estimated actual. So that is the last 24-25 budget that the board has seen. So when I'm comparing these numbers to how we ended, I'm comparing it to the numbers that we estimated in June. So overall, our revenue increased by $596,000 overall. That's both on the restricted general fund side and the unrestricted general fund. One thing that I do want to note is that we actually did not meet our projection when it came to property taxes. We had approximately, from what we were projecting in June, about a $345,000 decrease in our property tax receipts. And if you saw the narrative, it shows a comparative of the percentage value from year over year. And we had originally projected that based on assessed value that we were going to see a 6.01% increase in our property taxes. And what actually came in was only 5.55%. So I am working with the Auditor Controller's Office trying to figure out if there was any issues or adjustments that impacted that. This is probably one of the first times in many, many years that our property taxes actually came in less. Normally they come in a little bit higher. And related to that, our RDA residual property taxes, we saw a decline of about $13,000 there. Good news, our lottery estimates based on the current estimated per pupil amounts increased by $46,000. And lottery is where all of our funds really go to instructional materials, our annual instructional material purchases. Washoe County tuition, so this is for Washoe County resident students that are attending our schools. And essentially, we have a variance agreement with Washoe County Schools that if we'll take their students with a variance agreement and they can take ours with a variance agreement. And then they pay us back for those students based on the Washoe County per pupil amount. So our per pupil amount with Washoe County increased a little bit, so we see a little bit of a bump there in the tuition of $88,000. We also saw a slight increase, $19,000 in our home-to-school transportation reimbursement, and then a $35,000 increase in our RDA pass-through monies. And just to remind you, the RDA pass-through monies are money that are allocated and restricted to be used for facilities improvements. And then we saw a slight decrease in our title programs. That's Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. And as I've mentioned before, with these federal programs, we can only recognize the revenue when we actually spend that award amount. And what happened is we didn't spend all of our allocation from 2024-25, so we reduced the revenue accordingly. And then next year, that revenue will come back into the 25-26 budget. We also saw a decrease in our forest reserve funding of $97,000. And this is money that we get annually. Sometimes the federal government takes a while to approve it, so sometimes it's just delayed. We have had years where we didn't receive anything. We're hopeful that maybe we'll see this in 25-26, but that is unrestricted dollars that we do include in our budget every year. And then we saw a slight increase to interest earnings. That kind of ties a little bit with that fair market value discussion that we had earlier. Our interest earnings are a lot higher based on our investments than they have been in the past. So we've continued to increase that throughout the year as we had new information. And then, of course, there's that GASB 31 fair market value entry of $426,000, which, like I said, it's not earned revenue this year. So on the expense side, our expenses decreased by $1,361,649. We saw a slight increase in our certificated salaries of about $15,000. That's probably just extra duty sub cost, things like that, pretty small amount. We saw a $75,000 increase in our classified salaries, and a lot of that was probably extra duty and overtime at the end of the year. That wasn't projected at the time we did estimated actuals. We saw a decrease in our benefits, and benefits includes not only our health and welfare benefits, but also our payroll liabilities. So Social Security, STRS, PERS, Medicare, all those other payroll taxes. So we saw a slight decline in that, $132,000. And then on materials and supplies, we had a decrease of $406,000 from what we originally projected. And you'll see that top line right there, $321,000 decrease in instructional materials. With that, sorry, let me find my page here. I apologize. So that has some accounting context to it as well. So we're in the midst of a textbook adoption right now for math. We are paying for that on our middle and high school side. It's a 7-year span of time that adoption will be active. On the elementary side, it's 5 years. We are paying in installments over the course of 2 or 3 years. So we made some pretty large payments for those instructional materials this year of about $514,000. But because it's for a multi-year agreement, we can only recognize what the actual cost is attributed to 2024-25. So essentially on that, if the total cost is $1 million and it's over a 7-year period, you got to divide that by 7 years, and you can only account for that annual expense. So at first we had the full expense showing up in estimated actuals, and then we had to make an adjustment. So that's why you see that large decrease right there. And then we had a slight decrease in our transportation expenditures. That's just fuel costs. Maybe they didn't fill up the tank before the end of the year for diesel. We had an increase in our donations expenditures at the end of the year, things got active and sites really started spending down their donation money, and we hadn't projected that much. And then we did see a decrease in our Measure AA allocations. Sites didn't spend all the dollars, and then also in our safety budget. So when it comes to services and operations, we had a decrease of $223,000. This is kind of a lot of positives and negatives that kind of come to that $223,000 number. We actually saw an increase in our utilities and communications cost. And then we saw $199,000 in instructional and technology licenses. And again, on the textbook adoption, there's two sides of it. There's the regular textbooks, which are materials and supplies, and then there's the instructional licenses that are associated with those adoptions, and that goes under services and operating expenditures. So a big portion of that $199,000 decrease is due to that accounting that I mentioned before, where we could only recognize 1 year of cost. We saw an increase in our legal fees of $93,000. We just had some end of the year legal issues that we worked through. And then we had a slight increase to maintenance repairs. And one thing I should mention about the maintenance repairs is the routine maintenance account is a restricted account, and we're required to contribute a specific amount into that every year. And a lot of times when you see these increases and decreases in maintenance repairs, they have a set budget, and it just means that they moved maybe from materials and supplies category to services and operations, like they had a contracted repair instead of spending it on materials. So it's just movement a lot of times with accounting reclassifications. And then we had a decrease from what we had projected for our local hazard mitigation plan. Right now we're in the process of updating that, and we actually did not receive much in cost in the 24-25 year, but we'll see that more in 25-26. The other thing that we saw was a decrease in other programs, some slight decreases in our special education contracted services, as well as our safety program. We had some money reserved for a Placer County school resource officer, but right now they can't provide that, so we didn't spend those dollars. And then we had a decrease in our capital outlay. Capital outlay is any improvement to our facilities, or it's any equipment that's purchased that's over a value of $5,000. And much of that is attributed to our kitchen infrastructure grants. We received some money, one-time money from the state a couple years ago to do kitchen improvements. And at first we thought we had to spend all that down by the end of 2024-25. The deadline was June 30th, but before we closed out the year, they actually changed that and extended another year. So we didn't have to force those expenditures, so we can take some more time with it. And then increase in other outgo, $59,000. Other outgo is basically things that we pay out to other organizations or agencies. In particular with this, it's our special education. We pay Washoe County for special education students that reside within our school district, and then we also pay the Placer County Office of Education, SELPA, for when we have students enrolled in their regional programs, and we do have students in both right now. So that increased a little bit based on their new methodology for calculating the cost of that. And then on other financing sources, we saw a decrease, $616,000. So within that other financing sources, that includes the contributions that we make to our food service program and any other programs that are funded outside of our general fund. So that also includes our early learning and preschool programs as well. We generally do have a small contribution to early learning every year, and then we have our contribution to food service. So we had actually a positive $809,000 contribution to food service, and then I think about $75,000 to our early learning program, but a lot of that was offset with the transfer in. And we don't often see transfers in, but what this is when we go out and approve voter general obligation bonds, what happens is the county takes that on and and basically is responsible for collecting those ad valorem taxes from taxpayers to pay the debt service on those bond maturities, the principals, the interest. And then as we move towards a closeout, and this in particular relates to our 1999 bonds that many people still saw on their tax bill up until this year, the 1999 Series A bonds, once those are fully matured, which occurred just this past June, I think, whatever's left in that account goes back to the district that issued them. So that's something that's very infrequent that happens, but sometimes there could be nothing left in that account. Sometimes, it might be in the negative, but we actually benefited from that this year. So that goes back to our general fund, and I've actually put that in an account for additional curriculum adoptions because we have a lot of things coming up right now. Okay, so just a snapshot. Again, this compares our 23-24 year to what we budgeted originally for 24-25, what our estimated actuals were and unaudited actuals. So we started out, obviously, with 24-25 with a $98.8 million budget for revenue. And that changed as our property taxes and assessed value came in. Our property tax estimates increased. Same thing with some of our federal revenues. We had some carryover from prior years, from the prior year that we moved into the 24-25 year at first interim. And then state revenues, kind of a similar thing. We actually declined there. And then our local revenues of $13.5 million. We always budget a little bit less than that because we don't really recognize all of our donations and grants that we receive until we actually receive them. But local revenue includes our Measure AA, includes site donations, it includes our special ed local funding. And then just looking at where our revenues come from, for 24-25, 73% of our revenue were essentially property taxes with a little bit of state aid mixed in there. And then on the expense side, we started out the year with a $99.2 million budget. That later grew with, we did salary increases. We started adding more to instructional materials for the adoption. So all those different things. And then also our services and operating budget, we saw big increases in our utilities, particularly electric. So as we move through the year, we've made those adjustments and the board has approved them. And then we ended at $101,232,000. And then this is just showing how our budget is allocated. Looking at the majority of our budget's always salaries and benefits, as that shows in the green and the maroon and blue pieces of the pie there. And then looking at our ending fund balance, in our restricted funds, we have approximately $10 million. And then our unrestricted funds, we have a reserve for economic uncertainty of just over 16 million. As I mentioned, if I make those adjustments with the fair market, it's more like 15.9. And then we have reserve for cash stores and prepaid expenses. So all of those expenses that I talked about with instructional materials, they go to the prepaid category. So that's kind of like we've already spent the money, but we can't recognize it yet. So really that's not spendable revenue or balances rather. And then our designated balances are for our instructional material reserve, our bus replacement and tech reserve, and that's about $1.7 million. So overall, our reserve is at about a 15.8% level. Any questions?
Any questions from the audience? Sure. Please state your name when you get up there. Thank you.
Hello, Matt Hippler. I had a question for Mr. Rivera, but I don't know if it's appropriate to direct it to him or to the board.
You can ask it and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. The question was about the last slide in the reserve. It was 15.88, I think it was, whatever it was. I didn't know what the law says in terms of how much the district has to keep in reserve versus not what's required by law, but rather what's in the discretion of the district.
That's a great question. Would you like to share what the board policy is and then
Sure.
state? Yeah, great
So
question.
the
Thank
state
you.
requirement for a unified school district of our size is 3% reserve. We do have a board policy that that requires us to maintain between a 10 and 16% reserve. And the reason why we did that is because we're what's called a basic aid district. So we're So we've always maintained just a 10 to 16%. One thing I can say is that most districts in unified districts in the state of California right now are holding about a 17% reserve. And I should also point out that that's one-time money. That's like a savings account. If we start seeing like regular growth in it, then that tells us that we're not spending everything, right? But we also have to increase it accordingly as our budget increases as well to maintain the same percentage levels.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Okay, questions or comments from the board?
Maybe just one since we had a public comment, but Todd, can you put just in sort of layman's terms what that reserve amount would cover for the district in the event that we needed to use it for some sort of catastrophic event?
Yeah, and that's really what it's there for, is for those unexpected events that happen. And I can bring examples. During the recession, when we were seeing pretty large cuts to our state funding level, we used to receive about $3 million in categorical funding, and that dropped in 1 year to about $1.5 million. So really what that money there is to float us and help us plan and prepare in the event that we lose a lot of funding. That can happen in a lot of circumstances. Again, during the recession, there was like a reassessment of all properties to try to help out taxpayers, and our property taxes actually went in the negative. So we actually lost revenue year over year. And because we had healthy reserves, that kind of protected us from having to do major layoffs. But really, that's what it's there for. If we want to put it in a context of what our monthly expenditures are, it's about 2 months worth of payroll. Our payroll once we're in the school year is about $7+ million a month. But really, you know, we secure that to kind of weather out those times when we might have bad economic conditions. And even this year, we had threats of possibly losing a good portion of our federal funding. So that would have floated us and allowed us to still maintain our staffing ratios where they're at and continue and try to figure out a plan of how to do that on the long term.
Maybe just one more. And then we have a board policy for the sort of range of 10 to 16%. The state has their 3%. Do you have a sense, just in working with other districts, what sort of reserve ranges you've seen out there and whether ours is sort of higher or lower than others?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, like most basic aid districts do maintain more like a 20 to 25% reserve from what I've seen and what the other member districts are in our advocacy group, SF2. But just statewide, as I mentioned, school services every year does a snapshot of what other districts are holding in their reserve account. And a lot of districts were able to kind of build up the reserves a little bit during COVID and during all the periods of that one-time money. But most of them are carrying over 17% for a unified district, and then it differs according to whether they're a high school district or an elementary district.
Thanks for answering my questions. I always find this to be really helpful. I'm not a finance person, but every time you present budget information to us, I feel like it's very tangible and easy to understand. The numbers are there for us. The charts are helpful. So I just really appreciate all the work that you and your team have put in to put this together for us.
Thanks. And I can also add, like, one reason why historically basic aid districts have kept a little bit higher reserve than other districts is just because of the volatility of property taxes, but also there's always been kind of that threat of potentially the state not allowing us to keep those excess taxes. Because how it works right now is the state has a funding model called the local control funding formula where they kind of guarantee a certain funding level for all school districts, and that's based on the number of students they have, average daily attendance, and there's a per pupil amount for different grade levels, and that's kind of your base funding amount. But that's a combination when it comes to the local school district, it's a combination to fill that by local property taxes. And most school districts or local property taxes do not meet that LCFF base, so the state backfills the difference. With basic aid districts, we actually receive more property taxes than the LCFF calculation, and we're allowed to keep those. And with that, obviously we don't, we spend it. We have, additional programs we add. We have lower class sizes. We, put it to basically the students, and we pretty much have all those excess property taxes are accounted for essentially.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
So, just to back up a little bit, it sounded like you were going down the road that the state or the governor was going to do something with basic aid district excess taxes. I mean, is there some plan to remove it from us?
No, it's just always been a risk. Yeah. It's always been a risk for us. And right now they allow us to keep it, but when we're in the recession time, there was kind of that threat because they were making draconian cuts to education across the board. So what basic aid districts did is they kind of banded together and they did what was called a basic aid fair share. So we gave up some of our state revenue that we were receiving in order for, like, saying that's kind of our share to kind of help with the process and what we're going through at the state level. But there's no guarantee, and really legislators don't have any soft spot for basic aid districts. They don't realize some of the challenges that we deal with as well as other districts. And just another example, basic aid districts, we're not allocated additional funding for any of the programs that the state has implemented over the years. Universal meals, also transitional kindergarten's a big one. Other school districts are getting additional funding to help support those adult to pupil ratios that we're required to meet in the class sizes. We have to absorb that all within our current property taxes.
So these basic aid districts that banded together and gave back some of their state funding to help during the recession, are those districts, I'm assuming we're one of them, and are we now keeping that money, or are we still giving back?
No, it was kind of a one-time reduction, but it was a permanent reduction.
So I just want to give a plug for that CSBA luncheon for basic aid.
Yeah.
That's a good thing for us to attend, just as a band too, not just to educate ourselves. But before we call for a motion.
I was just going to say the thing that was really eye-opening for Todd and I this year was the fact that the property taxes came in lower than estimated. We know that there's a lot of economic uncertainty, and that was just a signal that we're watching carefully, and so.
And that says a lot, since we always ask you to be conservative, and since your mode of operation is to be conservative, that says a lot when we're conservative and they come in lower.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, maybe one positive in that we do still see construction happening. So we haven't had, this sort of dire situation, at least in Truckee, for construction stopping. It's shifted a little, I would say, that people are maybe scaling back a little bit in the single-family side. They're doing a lot more remodels. We're doing a lot more kind of smaller projects, but we still are getting a lot of new home construction. And then we have a hotel under construction, so once that gets its full assessed value, will be substantially more revenue than what we've seen before, and still a lot of interest, other hotel projects and other things that people are pursuing. So even though it seems like the economy is struggling, I would say that we still do have some good signs of healthy economy, and with the interest rates potentially, coming online here with the 0.25% reduction, that might also spur some additional interest in sort of selling homes, buying homes, and doing new construction. So I think that's sort of a positive from my other hat that I wear.
Yeah. And that's actually, I was noticing that, I just spent the weekend in Sonoma County, and I was noticing the Highway 80 corridor is still building, like next to the freeway. There's still a lot of building. And from an HVAC subcontractor perspective, whatever we see in the valley or in the city, about a year and a half, 2 years later, we start to feel it. And they're still building there. Yay, God. Okay, are we ready for, or did you have another comment?
No, I wanted to thank Todd and his team for
Yes.
condensing this into that report that we just saw. I don't know, there's no page number, so I don't know how many pages it is, but some of it was fascinating reading. I didn't read all of it.
All right, with that, can we get an action, is there a motion to approve the unaudited actual report? It's a mouthful.
I will move to approve the 24-25 unaudited actuals report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much, Todd and team. Thank you. Next item.
Back to Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. So tonight I'm sharing with you the Proposition 28 annual report. And as some background, in November 2022, the state passed Proposition 28, the Arts and Music in Schools Funding Guarantee and Accountability Act. And essentially what that did is created a funding source for arts and music programs in schools. And the way that's allocated is every year, whatever that Proposition 98 guarantee is, which is the guarantee the state makes to public education agencies on how much funding is going to be allocated towards K-12 and community college school districts. They take 1% of the value of that, and then they take that bucket and they distribute it to all the schools in K-12 public schools in California based on their enrollment and what's called their unduplicated counts, which are the highest needs pupils. And every school gets an allocation every year, and you have, with each year's allocation, they have 3 years to spend it. And of course, there are some stipulations and some requirements behind that money. One is that we are supposed to spend 80% of it on staffing, and that could be certificated or classified staffing. And then also, as I mentioned, we do have to spend it down within a 3-year period. So we're kind of still in the start of using our Proposition 28 money. When it first came out in 23-24, there was still a lot of questions surrounding it. It was one of those propositions that were passed and they gave funding, but there was still a lot of unanswered questions and processes that weren't in place. So we were advised to hold back and not allocate it and use it until we had some clarity on that. So we did make that available to school sites in 24-25. However, there's a lot of difficulty with implementing this because along with the rules of the 80% staffing usage, there's also requirements to supplement, not supplant. And, our school district already has some pretty healthy art and some music programs in our schools. So adding to that, and oftentimes what happens as well is the allocation amounts aren't enough to hire like a full person. It's a partial person. So finding someone that's just going to teach one art class and that's it is very difficult, especially at the middle and high school levels, and also adding that to the master schedule. So there's a lot of things that our principals are really trying to work through and utilize this money efficiently and properly. But we didn't have too many sites that participated in it this year. There was 3 sites, Alder Creek, Glenshire Elementary, and North Tahoe High School. There were some that spent a little bit for some materials and supplies. But the report basically requires us annually to report, sorry, I had it up, how many FTE of certificated staff that we've hired with this money, how many classified staff, and then also the number of students that are being served with the dollars that we're using for this year. So this year, we had 0.4 additional teachers that were added as a result of Proposition 28. There was a 0.2 that was added to enhance and expand arts programs at Glenshire Elementary, and they're serving all the students there. And then there was a 0.2 that was added as a new class at North Tahoe High School, which is arts, media, and video editing. And that's been pretty successful so far. And then Alder Creek got a little bit later start, but they are using classified enhancement professionals to help expand and support the band program there, because they have a lot of students. So they're able to help provide more individualized one-on-one instruction along with the band teacher. So for that, those are the FTEs that we've added, and then the number of students total that have been served with this year were 602 students. And that, like I said, that was at 3 sites. We still have one more year to spend the 23-24 allocation, so all the sites have plans right now to either add staff or do some startup things that they need to get a program going. And then moving forward, we have a 24-25 allocation. We'll get another allocation in 25-26, and we do have time to spend that and really figure out and make sure we're offering good programs at our school sites.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? How about from the board? Okay, so seeing none, is there a motion to approve this proposition report?
I will make a motion to approve the Proposition 28 Arts and Music in Schools Funding Annual Report for fiscal year 24-25.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And aye. Thank you. And now we have a presentation. Mrs. Roderick?
Thank you. I'm pleased to share with you this evening an informational update on our 25 summer programs. These programs were designed to be inclusive, engaging, impactful, and fun, catering to students TK through 12. Our mission was to provide summer opportunities that supported academic success and fostered personal growth. It is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Amy King to highlight this year's summer programming.
Oh, I think it's still on. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be here tonight to inform you about our 2025 summer programs. We have lots to celebrate. Please forgive me if you hear repeated information. I do that for your benefit because there are a lot of working pieces and places to put together. So our Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, ELOP, MOU works from an ELOP grant with a total of $888,160 to fund our programs. I appreciate that this board believes that children should be fed, and we did that this summer. Boys and Girls Club fed our students at Kings Beach, and TTUSD Food Services fed our children at Truckee. We had, like Ms. Roderick shared, we had TK through 12 at Kings Beach, TK through 5 at Truckee L, and 9 through 12 at Truckee High. We offered a variety of programs this year. We had our usual summer-long program through Boys and Girls Club and ELOP at Kings Beach and Truckee L. Aim High returned to Kings Beach to serve our middle school students. We expanded our program with a summer school model for rising first, second, and third graders in the ELOP program. We had our TK Summer Bridge back for a second summer at KBE and Truckee L. And we offered support for our high school students and special ed students through credit recovery at Truckee High. ELOP was a great success this summer, and we added students. So we had a total of 395 participants at Truckee L, which is an increase of 20 students from last year, and includes 208 ELOP unduplicated participants. This 5-week program had a daily attendance average of 176 students, and the overall daily attendance over 7 weeks was 166 students. At Kings Beach, we had 473 participants, which is an increase of 15 students and includes 206 unduplicated students. The 5-week ELOP program at Kings Beach had a daily attendance average of 174 students, and the overall daily attendance over 7 weeks was 163 students. The Boys and Girls Club partners shared with us some celebrations. We had increased attendance at our teen center, so 27 teens registered with the ELOP discount. More ELOP students K through 5 accessed the specialty camps and field trips, so there's a basic program in there and then they could add on. So more did that than last year. Kings Beach and Truckee hosted a bike rodeo with the Placer County Sheriff, CHP, and local fire departments. They hosted a weekly adventure hour with guest speakers about career and adventures. We had, again, increased food service due to use of the Kings Beach kitchen. So the Boys and Girls Club used the Kings Beach kitchen over the summer, which allowed them to expand a little bit in terms of their offerings. And 3 seasonal staff members at each site returned from a previous summer, in addition to full-time staff members that stayed on from the school year. My son was a person who worked there this summer, and I hope he's a return next year. Aim High is our program for our middle school students and is held at Kings Beach. Last year we had 71 students enroll in this program, and the goal for this year was 90, and we had 107 students enroll with an attendance rate of 89.5%, which is quite a celebration. As you can see from the survey from Aim High, our students had great things to say about the program, what they learned, and how much they were supported through it. Oops, sorry. We put summer school back in action this summer. So we pulled rising first, second, and third grade students from our ELOP students in the Boys and Girls Club to provide academic enrichment and support for 4 weeks, 4 hours a day at Kings Beach and Truckee. Certificated teachers and instructional assistants at each site worked with students in ELA and math to support their learning needs. We also had a summer administrator, Heidi Pruitt, and an admin assistant at Kings Beach, although they really supported both sites for us. Our littlest learners, I have a new appreciation for TK. Our littlest learners in the district were able to attend our TK Summer Bridge Camp for 2 weeks, 4 hours per day at Kings Beach and Truckee. We were able to hire a TK teacher and instructional aide for each classroom, and TK aides for the buses, probably an absolute necessity. This program focuses on students who simply need the experience of being in a school setting so that they can be successful during the school year. Our high schoolers and special ed students were able to participate in credit recovery through our online program, Edgenuity. Students attended in person and worked with the teacher if they needed to extend their work after the summer school hours. At Truckee High, we had 42 students enrolled. 22 students completed 1 class and 7 students completed 2 classes. 23 North Tahoe students enrolled. 14 students completed 1 class and 7 students completed 2 classes. And all students who needed credits for graduation requirements completed their coursework. Yeah, big celebration. These are some pictures from the Boys and Girls Club. You can see the bike rodeo down there. They had a color day, some field trips, so lots of fun was had this summer. We will be working with the principals this year to gather feedback and improve practices and programs for next year. And I'll see you back here in the spring to share with what we're doing next year. Any
Great,
questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? How about the board?
I do. If I followed your presentation right, there are 5 summer programs
Correct.
For a variety of students?
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That is, I didn't know we had that many. I know that, we've had summer programs for a variety of different things, but I didn't know we had so many. Do you have any idea at all what the total number of unduplicated students are that are served by all 5 of these?
No, but I will find out for you.
I bet it's huge.
Yeah,
I mean, just the ELOP program is huge.
correct.
And is growing.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't like this several years ago. You've done a magnificent job of expanding this program and giving students educational opportunities for growth in the summer.
Ed
More
yes.
kids should take advantage of that.
Yes.
And I think the data, the successful data for the credit recovery program, I think is also amazing because this is, for some kids, it's their last chance.
Yeah.
And then I have a quick question. Are we working to replace Edgenuity?
We're currently still with Edgenuity. There are a couple other programs that are rising within the educational system that may provide stronger opportunities that I will present to the principals around November of this year to look at.
Yeah, I hope so.
I have a couple that I think will rise.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. King.
And could you remind me or educate me, when does ELOP expire? Doesn't that expire? It doesn't, it's ongoing?
We receive funding each year for the ELOP grant, and so next month I will bring back to the board for consideration this year's funding and MOU.
Great, okay. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Oh,
Just a great presentation as always, and I'm always inspired by how every year the numbers increase, and I know that there's always positive feedback. The Boys and Girls Club steps up every time.
Every time.
They're such a great partner, and just the opportunity, the students, success coming out of this is just so amazing. So I love hearing about it.
Yeah.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roderick. All right, so next up is the consent agenda. Superintendent, are there any items that the staff would like to pull from the agenda?
No items from staff.
What about the board?
Yeah, I would like to pull the personnel action report for a separate vote. Mrs. Mooney is on there for a couple of VSAs, which I'll be abstaining from.
Okay. So with the changes to the consent agenda, can we get a motion to approve it?
I'll approve the modified consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. And then procedurally now, does item 13.1?
Becomes 14.1.
14.1, okay. Okay, bear with me. So now we would like to approve item 13.1, and Mr. Mooney is going to abstain. Okay, got it.
Need a motion second,
Yep.
and then you just.
Okay, and that is just for those listening or watching, it's the approved personnel action report for today's date. So is there a motion to approve this personnel action?
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel action report for September 17th, 2025.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye, thank you. Lupita, you got that? Yes. Great, thank you very much. All right. Technology, we have a presentation, I think.
We do, and it's
Wait
my
for this.
pleasure to invite up our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Ed Hilton, who's not wearing outdoor ed hat at this moment.
Although will be a lot in the next few weeks.
I like the Jetsons graphic up there. That's so appropriate.
It actually kind of looks like the Google Gemini look. The board. It's always fun to have an opportunity to share with you and provide important updates. My name is Ed Hilton, and I'm Chief Technology Officer for the district, and with me is Michael Arrington, our Teacher Technology Specialist. And tonight we're here to discuss our district's deliberate and responsive approach to artificial intelligence.
student-centered. The primary purpose of any tool we consider must be to personalize and enhance the learning experience for our students. And second, it must be staff-centered. We view AI as a tool to augment and support our talented teachers and staff. It can help with planning and administrative tasks, but it will never replace the essential human connection and the professional judgment that our teachers provide. We are also committed to ethical use and transparency. As a district, we have the responsibility to model and explicitly teach the ethical use of AI. This is a core component of digital citizenship in the 21st century and includes having critical conversations about the potential for inherent biases with these systems. And of course, any tool must be secure and private. We are stewards of our community's data, and the district will always prioritize the security and provide privacy of our students and staff information in our practices. This leads us to our final and perhaps most critical guiding principle: equity and safe access. Our commitment is to ensure that AI is implemented in a manner that provides equitable, safe, and developmentally appropriate access for all of our students. This means being deeply thoughtful about what is right for a high school senior versus what is appropriate for a middle or elementary school student.
So this principle of safety isn't just theoretical. We've been looking at it pretty closely, and it informs how we respond to the real-world developments in AI, and our approach to Gemini is a perfect example the last couple of weeks. When Google released the Gemini for teens and children this past summer, it initially received high ratings for its privacy and security features, and based on that early information, we had anticipated being able to develop plans for a potential fall rollout to schools willing to start to prototype using them in the classroom. However, a core part of our strategy is adapting to new, more detailed expert information as it becomes available. And in early September, the national nonprofit Common Sense Media released a formal in-depth risk assessment specifically for teen use. The report assigned Gemini an overall high risk rating and validated our decision to move forward with caution. This new information has led us to pause any consideration of a release until we have a comprehensive board policy in place that has been vetted by community stakeholders. The report identified 3 key areas of concern that we cannot ignore as educators. First, the tool can provide unsafe mental health support as it fails to recognize nuanced signs of distress common in teenagers. Second, its safety precautions are inconsistent. And third, the tool's architecture was not fundamentally designed for children, but rather adult product with safety filters bolted on. These third-party expert findings affirm our decision to prioritize building a strong policy before any comprehensive classroom implementation, even in a prototype way. Our primary focus is and will continue to be on building strong foundation. To do this in the coming weeks, Superintendent Kramer and I will convene an AI policy working group made up of a representative group of stakeholders, including teachers, parents, site leaders, and district staff. Bringing together this diverse group, we ensure that the policy we create is not just top-down, but a reflection of our entire community's values and concerns. The work of the group is to analyze research like the Common Sense Media Report and use it to draft a TTUSD specific policy based on the CSBA model. The cool thing is I want to note that our district is in a strong position to do this work, as I had the privilege of serving for 2 years on the statewide CSBA work group that developed this model that we'll be using and related policies for all California school boards, of which you've adopted 3 already over the last 18 months. The experience gives us unique insight as we ensure our new policy aligns with existing board policies on academic honesty, student assessment, and technology use in the classroom.
This comprehensive policy allows...
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to get the question before we move on and I lose it.
I will have time for questions.
I know, but I'll forget it.
Yeah.
The policy numbers that are listed there, are those the CSBA model policy numbers, or are they district, TTUSD?
Both.
They're both?
They're both, yeah. When CSBA releases the model policy, it has the numbering system that we use. We align to their same system.
Are these current TTUSD policies?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, well, this comprehensive policy work allows us to address the key concerns head-on before any district-adopted tool is ever placed in front of a student. It ensures we have clear guardrails to protect student safety and well-being. It reinforces our non-negotiable commitment to data privacy. It also mandates that we teach students to be critical consumers of information to combat bias and inaccuracies. It allows us to set clear modern expectations around academic integrity. And finally, it highlights the irreplaceable role of our educators who provide the wisdom, empathy, and care that technology simply cannot replicate. Ultimately, this work is about preparing our students for their future. This is definitely tied to our mission of ensuring students are ready for college, career, and life. AI is already reshaping the changing workforce. We're seeing significant impacts on many entry-level jobs, white-collar jobs, and our students might have traditionally pursued right after graduation. Just recently about computer science and how students are not being able to access those initial jobs. And it's already this creates a new imperative for us. We have the responsibility to provide all students with a foundational AI literacy, not just a technical skill, but as a core competency for success in the 21st century. This preparation goes beyond simply using AI tools. True AI literacy isn't about teaching students how to generate an essay with a single prompt. It's about cultivating critical thinkers who can analyze and question AI-generated content. It's about developing ethical digital citizens who understand societal impacts of these technologies, from algorithmic bias to data privacy. Our goal is to empower students to be not just consumers of AI, but discerning and responsible navigators of a world that will be shaped by AI. At the same time, we know that artificial intelligence can't do everything. We remain steadfastly committed to balancing innovation with essential skills. Our existing career technology education pathways are incredibly valuable, preparing students for career in fields like engineering technology, food services and hospitality, sports and medicine, and welding. As we look to the future, we also recognize the growing importance of what are often called the skilled trades. Therefore, we're also beginning to explore ways we can introduce and connect our students to more of these essentially high-demand career fields.
To ensure the work is done thoroughly and transparently, we've established clear and deliberate timeline for this year. It's not a process we're trying to rush through, even though it seems like everybody's trying to rush and catch up. We're not alone in this. After selecting the representatives who will serve on the working group later this fall, the group will convene this winter to complete the first draft of the district's AI policy. The initial document will synthesize our research, including CSBA model policy and specific findings from our third-party experts that we're looking into, like Common Sense Media. Then in February, we're into the phase of community engagement. We'll share the draft widely with staff, parents, and the broader community for feedback. And it's essential to ensure the final policy that we present to you reflects the voices and values of our community. And based on that feedback, we'd like to bring a revised draft to the board for a dedicated study session in the spring and a formal first read. It'll provide the full board with an opportunity for an in-depth look and discussion and consideration before the final draft is voted on. Our goal is to bring a final, well-vetted and community-informed policy for your adoption June of 26. The policy will then guide all future decisions regarding the evaluation and potential implementation of artificial intelligence tools in our district. So to bring everything together, the central message we want to leave you with tonight is that while AI is a truly transformative technology, we've been using it as staff around the district, and I know that many of you have been starting to use it too. Its rapid evolution requires an equally thoughtful and responsive approach to us as a district. So given the very real risks that have been identified by experts and the fact that our students are already navigating the space independently, TTUSD wants to deliberately prioritize a policy-first strategy and ensures that student safety, digital citizenship, and ethical considerations are all at the forefront of the decisions we make. So it allows us to create a strong research-informed and community-vetted foundation before we consider introducing any new tools to the kids. Our ultimate goal remains, as always, to prepare our students to be critical, ethical, and successful citizens in the world they inherit. The work is a direct extension of that mission. So thanks again for your time, and we welcome any questions that you have.
Can I
stand up and cheer? Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? Board?
Not questions, but I do appreciate having the timeline, and I feel like even that timeline feels ambitious to some degree, in part because it's such a complex issue and something that everyone's grappling with, right? Like, it's got so many benefits and opportunities, but the risks are still sort of in that unknown category. So I appreciate how multifaceted this presentation was and looking at all those issues as things that we need to grapple with our students. Because the other part of I kept thinking about as you were presenting is, because this generation is sort of the first to take this on, they're also going to have to educate the older generations about it too, where, you know, they're going to be the first ones kind of explaining to their parents, grandparents, whatever, like, this is what you can do with it, and this is how, you know, you can help yourself or change things. And so, you know, getting in their hands sort of all the right information and being able to be critical on how they approach and think about it is just going to trickle up in some ways, which is kind of an interesting way to think about it. But it's such an important issue.
Thanks, Danielle. It kind of reminds me of like where we were at maybe like 15 years ago, the last big implementation of tools with social media. And now we look back and we're like, ooh, maybe we could have done that a little differently. I mean, we didn't like necessarily adopt as like a learning tool necessarily, but we had to deal with it, and we're still dealing with it today. Yeah. So thank you for those comments. Others?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for being out ahead of this. I perceive a day not far in the future where you guys will be in Time Magazine also for what you're doing for our district with this. It's complex, it's confusing, and it's moving so quickly. I too thought, wow, June of 2026, that seems ambitious, but by then it could all change again. We may be starting from scratch again, not from scratch, but starting over again at that date. So, yeah, we got to move. And yes, the younger people are going to have to teach the older people how to use this. I'm currently supervising student teachers in a different area, and we have these Zoom meetings where we all talk about education and whatnot. And at the end of every meeting, I write a little summary of the meeting and the next steps and so on, and I send it off to them. And one of them got back to me and said, Zoom AI will do that for you. And so I clicked the button, and not only did it do it for me, it sounded way smarter than me. It professionalized the language, and it interpreted. It writes down a summary from what people are saying. It's not even it's
threads of ideas.
It interprets
Your intent.
what I've said much more clearly than the way I said it. That's frightening. The first time I saw it, I had to show Mira, and I this is scary. This is
Each
what
of
it
the
does.
AI models is designed to actually make you feel good as a person. I mean, they want you to have this conversation. You're not going to talk to it if they put down your ideas or say, things like that. So, which is one of the scary things about it. That's why they can get into this loop when we're, nervous for the students and stuff, that they don't get in this loop and keep on getting this positive feedback all the time and go
Right.
down the wrong direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not perfect, though. I have to, I'm sorry.
No, please.
I read those summaries and go, well, I did not say that, and I have to, go in and edit it.
But you did.
Yeah. Mr. Mooney said he will cover all expenses now.
Well, and I was going to say, to your credit, you're reading before you press send or whatever the command is, because, I think that's where what you were saying, like teaching students to be ethical and thoughtful, like check out what it's saying for you, because.
The big thing that they're saying now is, do 80-20. Like, let the AI do 80% of the work, but you do 20% of the work to make sure it's right and things like that. In terms of some things, not all your work, right? We can't do, but when you're asking somebody like an aide or something to do, or a secretary or someone who's going to do your work for it, they go out and do 80% of the work, but you're still doing 20% of the work to make sure that it's right and it's on course.
That's great.
For those of us that have been using it quite a bit, we find that we get the best use of the tool when you're inputting the things that you've already kind of thought about or are trying to put together, and put these different resources together, and you have your own thoughts already. It increases the quality of what the tools can help you with. Find those threads between conversations.
And I just want to say I'm very excited to work with Ed on this. We've been talking all through the summer, and one thing I want to assure everyone is the Chief Learning Officer, one of the lenses that I'm watching very carefully is cognitive development of our students and how AI is enhancing that or perhaps having a negative impact. So Ed is expert in the safety, data safety along with instruction. Michael is as well. That's something I'm monitoring. Right now, we know for student well-being from Anna Marie's team and counselors and so on, we know it's not safe right now. They're not, Google will even say, when Ed and I were reviewing, it says AI should, Gemini should, and until it says Gemini will respond in this way when this prompt is put in, we're very cautious. But I just want to assure everyone we're really thinking about cognitive development as well.
No comments? So, okay, so I want to share a couple things. I want to share a personal experience from this morning. Like you, I have a sophomore in college, and one of our courses requires a ton of reading and then presentation. And in the because I asked her, so because she works and has all these other classes, right? So how are you fitting it all in? Are you using AI? From this lens. I asked from this lens. And she's like, oh, no, Mom, because whenever you present, the teacher after you present wants to know how the material made you feel, if you had any fears when you read it. So it went back to that. I don't know if cognitive is the right terminology, but like, there are even, in Ella's example, just ways that it might be accepted but not, or expected but not accepted 100% yet, you know? Okay, and then I just wanted to share that one of the last, so I feel, and you know this, I feel like with your stewardship and your stewardship, the district is in good hands, right? Like, you're educated, you have a great team, you have, I mean, curiosity is one of your biggest strengths. You've been volunteering with CSB. I mean, a ton of experience to lead this district in this with your team. And then you're caring, you're thoughtful, you have a lot of wisdom, right? And so I'm just very, very excited that we're here. And I'm also very excited that you included a screenshot of a slide of thinking about careers so that we can just start the conversation with students, you know, beyond the usage of AI within the district of, you know, what will future careers look like. So thank you so much for your presentation. I'm super excited about that.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate you being a thinking partner with us too as we go down this route. And I know a former trustee, Larson, is also watching online, has been also helping us think through this as well with his experience. And my son, who's going to a Cal State system, they just provided ChatGPT access for the whole system, purchased the pro model for everybody, students, staff, hundreds of thousands of students. So, but they kind of did it before they talked to their professors and their students, and so they're all, it's fun to watch all these organizations go through very similar things that we're going through and maybe taking missteps. So we're kind of like watching and seeing how is the university system dealing with it. There are some school districts that are moving ahead with certain parts, like there are LLM, large language model based tools like Notebook LM where you can take research and put it all together. It's not going to give you anything outside of the research that you've put into the system. So you can kind of create your own little large language model. And so that might be something that we could look at too as kind of a middle step before we go to like a full large language model. And I will have to say too that we had already 2 schools that were ready to jump on it and go. They were ready to message their parents. They were ready to do training in their advisory classes, ready to go. And they were really bummed when we said, you know what? Time out. We need a little more time to get this set up. We're always kind of we struggle with that. It's like that kind of like, are we on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge, cutting edge, you know, kind of watch, wait and see. And we like to be on the forefront, you know, as you know, our teachers and our schools. But sometimes we just, especially with these things, and we start, you know, we read those articles and hear the podcasts of kind of some interesting things going on. And we want to make sure everybody's safe.
Okay, great. Anything else? Thank you both very much.
You're welcome.
All right, bear with us, we're almost there. So first read board policy.
Yes, and for these three policies, we're going to turn to our Executive Director of Human Resources, Mr. Mike Shepard.
Thank you, Superintendent Kramer, Clerk Hennessy, members of the board. I have three policies to review with you tonight that are info only, and should you not have any questions or changes, they'll come back next meeting under the consent agenda. So the first one is policy 4030 AR, BP and AR 4030, non-discrimination in employment. And these changes are reflective of new guidance at the beginning of the year with a new administration to Title IX and changes. So this policy is updating, reflecting that new guidance. The next policy, 16.2, under similar fashion due to Title IX changes, the lactation accommodations for employees have also been modified to update to reflecting new guidance. And then the last policy are three policies, the 4112.9, 4212.9, 4312.9, and these are annual employee notifications, and this is just updated semi-regularly with new policies that we have to inform employees about. Some of them appear in our mandated trainings, and some of them appear in the annual email and notice that I send out in August. And so with that, are there any questions?
Any questions from the public? Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, we'll bring this back to consent agenda then. Thank you. And as a closing item, board business. Do you want to start? Nothing? Okay. How about you, Trustee Mooney?
Oh, yeah, it's getting late, I'll make it quick. I want to thank all the employees and the teachers who sent in letters this week and who showed up at this meeting. It was, I won't say it was great to hear about the increase of expenses that they're having, but I appreciate receiving that information and having them write and explain to us, in some detail, what the expenses are that they're going through and the changes that they're going through and the differences in, perhaps lifestyle or mental health or emotional health that they are going through due to the increase in healthcare premiums, which is really, I think, at the root of our issue here in these negotiations. So thank you all for doing that. I love the new shirts. The last one I wore was more of a deep purple. My apologies to Richie Blackmore, but but yeah, and I'm hoping that the negotiations will be resolved amicably and favorably for everybody involved.
I've just been out attending the back to school nights. So I did Truckee High School, ACMS, Donner Trail, which was super fun. Got my blingy earrings from Donner Trail. So thanks to Mrs. King for those. And then I also attended the North Tahoe Truckee High varsity girls soccer game, which ended in a tie of 1-1, but was a very, very fun game to watch, and saw Superintendent Kramer there. So that's probably all I could squeeze in for this last 2 weeks.
I just want to share two items. One is I attended the back to school night at Kings Beach Elementary, and I'm curious to hear their feedback from their families on their new format. I thought it was cool, but I'm not a parent there so anymore. But it'd be interesting to hear because they really did put strangers together, and it's like, share what your hopes and dreams are for your students. So that was very cool. And then the second thing is I just want to give a shout out to Boys and Girls Club, the Great Futures production, because they just spent their troupe, which is a singing group, and I'm using the wrong verbiage, but it's kind of like choir for Great Futures. They spent an entire week with, I want to say, 9 of our TTUSD students from all over the district for a week in Las Vegas performing at their regional conference. And so that's one of the best things about this Great Futures is it exposes kids to things they might not be exposed to here in our region, because they entertained 1,000 people for an entire week, along with a few other districts in the state. So I just want to congratulate our students and just say thank you to Boys and Girls Club Great Futures production, and that's all I have. Okay, with that, we are adjourned.